There's something almost magical about holding an object that has survived centuries, maybe even millennia, carrying with it the whispers of people and places long gone. These relics aren't just artifacts, they're time capsules, each one hiding a story that could rewrite history or reveal secrets we were never meant to know. Today, we're embarking on a journey through 37 of the most mysterious relics ever discovered, each with a tale so intriguing, it feels like it's been pulled straight from a thriller. From cursed jewels that seem to carry their own dark energy to manuscripts written in languages no one can fully decipher, these objects don't just belong to the past, they haunt it. What is it about these relics that captures our imagination so completely? Maybe it's the way they defy explanation, standing as silent witnesses to events we can only guess at. Or perhaps it's the thrill of the unknown, the idea that somewhere buried in these objects lies a truth waiting to shake the foundations of what we think we know. Take, for example, the Antikythera Mechanism, a 2,000-year-old device so advanced it's been called the world's first computer. Who built it? How did they possess knowledge that wouldn't be rediscovered for centuries? These aren't just questions for historians, they're puzzles that invite us all to become detectives, piecing together clues from the fragments left behind. By the time we're done, you'll see these relics not as dusty museum pieces, but as living, breathing connections to the past. Some of them carry curses, others hold codes that remain unbroken, and a few might even point to civilizations lost to time. But one thing ties them all together: they refuse to be forgotten. So settle in, because we're about to uncover the untold stories behind 37 artifacts that have baffled experts, sparked legends, and in some cases changed the course of history itself. The past is calling, and it has secrets to share. The Antikythera Mechanism isn't just a relic, it's a mystery wrapped in bronze gears, a device so far ahead of its time that it feels almost out of place in the ancient world. Discovered in a shipwreck off the coast of Greece in 1901, this intricate machine dates back to around 100 BCE, yet its complexity rivals that of 18th century clockwork. At first glance, it looked like a lump of corroded metal, but when researchers painstakingly reconstructed it, they uncovered a system of interlocking gears designed to predict celestial events with jaw-dropping precision. Imagine holding a device that could tell you when the next solar eclipse would occur or track the movements of the planets, all without electricity, without modern engineering, and over 2,000 years ago. Who could have created such a masterpiece? The leading theory points to the Greeks, possibly linked to the legendary inventor Archimedes or the scholars of Rhodes, a hub of ancient astronomy. But here's the twist: nothing else like it has ever been found from that era. It's as if this one device survived to taunt us with the question, how much knowledge has been lost to time? Some believe it was used by sailors to navigate the treacherous Mediterranean, while others argue it was a teaching tool, a way to demonstrate the harmony of the cosmos. Yet its true purpose remains just out of reach, like a puzzle missing half its pieces. What makes the Antikythera Mechanism so mesmerizing isn't just its engineering. It's the implication that ancient civilizations might have understood far more about the universe than we've given them credit for. Think about it. This machine calculated the positions of celestial bodies using cycles and ratios that wouldn't be formally rediscovered until the Renaissance. Did its creators possess knowledge that was later erased or forgotten? Or was this device part of a broader tradition of advanced mechanics that simply didn't survive the ravages of history? Every gear, every inscription on its surface is a whisper from the past, challenging our assumptions about the timeline of human innovation. And perhaps the most haunting question of all, if this is what survived, what else might have existed? The Antikythera Mechanism forces us to reconsider the boundaries between ancient and modern, between myth and science. It's not just an artifact, it's a bridge to a world where the line between magic and machinery might have been thinner than we ever imagined. The Voynich Manuscript doesn't just defy translation, it mocks it. This enigmatic book, carbon dated to the early 15th century, is filled with pages of looping, alien script that no one has ever deciphered, accompanied by illustrations so strange they seem plucked from a dream. Botanical drawings depict plants that don't match any known species, while celestial charts show constellations unrecognizable to modern astronomers. Its vellum pages whisper secrets in a language that might be code, cipher, or pure invention. And that's the heart of the mystery. For over a century, cryptographers, linguists, and even wartime codebreakers have thrown themselves at its pages, only to walk away empty-handed. What makes the Voynich Manuscript so tantalizing is its refusal to fit neatly into any category. Some argue it's an elaborate medieval hoax, crafted to dupe a wealthy patron with a fake book of secrets. Others believe it's a genuine artifact of lost knowledge, perhaps an alchemist's notebook, written in code to protect dangerous discoveries. Then there are the more outlandish theories that it's the work of an unknown civilization or even extraterrestrial communication. But the most compelling detail, the text follows linguistic patterns, with words and phrases repeating in ways that suggest real meaning rather than random gibberish. It feels like language, just one we can't comprehend. Consider the frustration of modern researchers armed with supercomputers, yet still unable to crack a 600-year-old puzzle. The manuscript script, dubbed Voynichese, has resisted frequency analysis, the same technique used to break Nazi codes during World War II. Even artificial intelligence, trained on hundreds of languages, has failed to find a match. This isn't just a locked book, it's a vault with no key, and the illustrations only deepen the confusion. Those uncanny plants with their bulbous roots and spiraling leaves could be fantastical inventions, or evidence of botanical knowledge lost to time. The zodiac-like diagrams with nude women bathing in interconnected tubes hint at a blend of astrology and medicine that doesn't align with any known historical tradition. Perhaps the most haunting possibility is that the manuscript's secret isn't just hidden, it's irretrievable. Without a Rosetta Stone to compare it to, without even a single confirmed word of translation, we might never know if its pages hold genius or nonsense. And that's what lingers, the idea that somewhere in those cryptic symbols lies an answer to what we can't say. The Voynich Manuscript isn't just a relic, it's a mirror reflecting our own limitations back at us. Every generation that tries and fails to read it is reminded how much history keeps to itself, yet the manuscript endures not as a defeat but as an invitation. It dares us to keep looking, to wonder what might be waiting in those inscrutable lines, because if we ever do crack its code, the truth might be stranger than any theory we've concocted. Until then, it remains history's most beautiful, maddening riddle, a book that speaks but refuses to say a word. The Baghdad Battery might look like an ordinary clay pot at first glance, just a jar about the size of a fist, sealed with asphalt and containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod. But this unassuming artifact, dating back nearly 2,000 years to the Parthian Empire, has sparked one of the most electrifying debates in archaeology. Discovered in the 1930s near modern-day Iraq, the object seems suspiciously like a primitive battery. When filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or lemon juice, replicas have generated enough voltage to produce a faint but measurable electric current. So was this ancient technology, or just a lucky coincidence? The implications are staggering. If the Baghdad Battery was intentionally designed to harness electricity, it would predate Alessandro Volta's official invention of the battery in 1800 by millennia. Some researchers suggest it could have been used for electroplating coating objects in thin layers of gold or silver, a technique known to Mesopotamian artisans. Others propose it might have played a role in religious ceremonies, delivering tiny shocks to simulate divine power. Imagine a priest using this device to make a statue come alive with a faint tingling touch, convincing worshippers of supernatural intervention. The psychological impact alone would have been profound, yet skeptics aren't so easily convinced. They argue the jar might have simply stored scrolls, with the iron and copper acting as protective casing. After all, no wires or connectors have ever been found alongside these artifacts. But here's the twist: multiple similar jars have been unearthed, hinting at a broader, possibly intentional design. And while the voltage produced is minimal, barely enough to power a small LED light today, it's still electricity, a force humans weren't supposed to harness for another 1800 years. The real mystery isn't just whether the Baghdad Battery worked, but what its existence says about the transmission or loss of knowledge. Ancient civilizations from Egypt to China documented strange phenomena like electric fish and static shocks, but harnessing that power deliberately would require a leap in understanding. Could this be evidence of a forgotten scientific tradition? Or perhaps a lone experimenter stumbling onto a principle they didn't fully grasp? Either way, the Baghdad Battery forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. How many other breakthroughs have been lost to time, buried under the dust of empires that fell before their secrets could be passed on? What makes this relic so captivating is its duality. It's either a revolutionary outlier or a mundane object we've wildly misinterpreted. But that's the thrill of archaeology. Sometimes the simplest artifacts hold the loudest echoes. Whether battery or storage jar, the Baghdad Battery reminds us that history isn't a straight line of progress. It's a labyrinth full of dead ends and hidden passages, and every now and then we stumble onto something that makes us wonder if we've been walking in circles all along. The Shroud of Turin is more than just an ancient piece of fabric. It's a riddle wrapped in faith, science, and controversy. This delicate linen cloth, measuring over 14 feet long, bears the ghostly imprint of a bearded man with wounds consistent with crucifixion, from the crown of thorns to the spear wound in his side. To millions of believers, it's the actual burial shroud of Jesus Christ, a sacred relic that captured his image at the moment of resurrection. To skeptics, it's an elaborate medieval hoax crafted to inspire pilgrimage and devotion. But here's what baffles everyone. No one, not even modern scientists, can fully explain how that haunting image was created. Carbon dating in the 1980s placed the shroud's origins between 1260 and 1390, squarely in the Middle Ages, a blow to those who claimed it was 2,000 years old. Yet that answer only deepened the mystery. How did a medieval forger produce an image with no visible brushstrokes, no pigments, and a level of anatomical precision that wouldn't be matched until the Renaissance? The figure's three-dimensional details, from the contours of the face to the flow of blood, are eerily accurate, as if the cloth had been draped over a real body. Some researchers argue the image resembles a photographic negative, a concept centuries ahead of its time. Even more puzzling, the stains contain traces of human blood type AB, a rare group common in the Middle East, mixed with compounds found in ancient Jerusalem soil. Theories about the shroud's origins span the spectrum from divine to scientific. Some propose it was created through a burst of radiant energy during the resurrection, leaving behind a scourge-like imprint. Others suggest it might be the work of a medieval artist using an early form of camera obscura or chemical reactions to create the effect. Then there's the question of why no historical records mention the shroud before the 14th century. If it were genuine, wouldn't early Christians have revered it? Yet despite the gaps, the shroud resists easy dismissal. Fire, water damage, and centuries of handling should have destroyed it, yet the image persists, fading but never vanishing. What makes the Shroud of Turin so compelling isn't just the debate over its authenticity, it's the way it forces us to confront the limits of both science and belief. For every test that casts doubt, another raises new questions. Microscopic pollen grains embedded in the fabric match plants native to Jerusalem, while textile experts point out its weave resembles 1st century Judean burial cloths. Even the carbon dating has been challenged, with some arguing contamination from medieval repairs skewed the results. The shroud exists in a liminal space, a relic that refuses to be fully explained or entirely dismissed. Perhaps its greatest power lies in what it represents, the intersection of faith and evidence, mystery and reason. Whether divine artifact or ingenious forgery, the shroud has endured as a mirror for our own uncertainties. It doesn't just ask us what we believe, it asks how we believe and what we're willing to accept when the answers aren't clear. And in that way, it transcends its own origins, becoming something far more than linen and thread. It's a testament to the human need for wonder, a physical echo of the questions that have haunted us for centuries. And so the shroud remains, suspended between proof and miracle, inviting each generation to look closer and decide for themselves. The Nazca Lines aren't just ancient art, they're a desert canvas stretching across nearly 200 square miles of Peru's arid plateau, so vast and precise they defy logic. Etched into the earth between 500 BC and 500 CE by the Nazca people, these geoglyphs form hundreds of intricate designs from geometric spirals and trapezoids to staggering depictions of animals like hummingbirds, spiders, and even a humanoid figure nicknamed the astronaut. But here's what stops you in your tracks. These shapes are so enormous, some spanning over 1,200 feet, that they're only fully visible from the sky. How did a culture without flight create such precise, monumental artwork, and why? Theories about their purpose range from the practical to the profound. Some researchers argue the lines functioned as an astronomical calendar, aligning with solstices or constellations to track planting seasons. Others see them as sacred pathways, walked during rituals to communicate with deities or ancestors. Then there's the more controversial idea that they were meant to be seen by beings from above, whether gods or, in modern speculation, extraterrestrial visitors. But the most compelling clue might lie in the Nazca's own environment. In a desert where water was life, the lines could have been part of a grand hydrological map, marking underground aquifers or directing ceremonial offerings to summon rain. What's undeniable is the sophistication behind their creation. The Nazca didn't just scratch the surface, they removed layers of dark, iron-rich gravel to reveal lighter sediment beneath, creating contrast that's endured for millennia. Their understanding of perspective and scale suggests a mastery of geometry that rivals modern engineering. Think about it, without drones or blueprints, they plotted designs so precise that even today, recreating them at ground level would be nearly impossible. Some lines run perfectly straight for miles, deviating by less than a yard over their entire length. How? Archaeologists suspect they used simple tools and ropes, scaling up small models through a grid system. But even that explanation feels almost too humble for the result. The real enigma isn't just the how, though. It's the why invest so much. In a harsh landscape where survival was a daily struggle, the Nazca devoted generations to carving symbols only the sky could read. That devotion hints at something deeper than utility, a belief that these lines held power. Maybe they were prayers made visible or boundaries between worlds. Or perhaps, like so many relics, they're a message we're still learning to decipher. And then there's the eerie prescience of it all. Today, in an age of satellites and Google Earth, the Nazca Lines feel almost prophetic, as if their creators anticipated a time when humanity would finally take to the skies and see their work in full. It's a reminder that some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, only witnessed. The lines endure not as a puzzle to crack, but as a testament to the lengths we'll go to reach beyond what's tangible, to etch our questions into the earth and wait for the answers to come. The crystal skulls glow with an otherworldly perfection, their smooth quartz surfaces catching the light like something not quite of this earth. Discovered in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, these intricately carved artifacts were originally claimed to be ancient Mesoamerican relics, specifically Aztec or Mayan, crafted centuries before European contact. But what makes them so unsettling isn't just their craftsmanship, it's the way they seem to defy the limits of their time. The most famous, like the Mitchell Hedges skull, are carved from single blocks of rock crystal with such precision that modern experts struggle to replicate them, even with laser tools. No chisel marks, no signs of grinding, just flawless contours that suggest a technology far beyond what historians attribute to pre-Columbian civilizations. So where did they really come from? The truth is murkier than the legends. While many crystal skulls have been debunked as 19th century hoaxes, created to feed the era's obsession with the exotic, a handful resist easy explanation. Forensic analysis reveals some were carved without metal tools, a technique that would require either unimaginable patience or a method we've yet to uncover. Some researchers point to lost civilizations like Atlantis, while others whisper about extraterrestrial influence theories fueled by the skull's uncanny symmetry, which mirrors the proportions of a human skull almost too accurately. Then there are the stories, curators reporting strange phenomena around them, from temperature drops to hallucinations. Whether myth or misunderstood science, the skulls have become magnets for speculation. But let's pause on the craftsmanship for a moment. Quartz is one of the hardest materials on Earth, ranking just below diamond on the Mohs scale. Carving it without fracturing the crystal would require not just skill but near clairvoyant knowledge of the stone's internal structure. Modern lapidaries use diamond-tipped tools and computerized precision. The idea that pre-industrial artisans achieved similar results feels impossible. Yet there's a twist. Recent studies suggest some skulls might have been shaped using a combination of abrasives and rotary tools, techniques the Maya and Aztec did possess. Could we be underestimating ancient ingenuity, or is this another case where we're missing a piece of the puzzle? Then there's the cultural context. Mesoamerican societies did venerate skulls as symbols of rebirth and the afterlife. The Aztecs displayed racks of real skulls in their temples, and crystal, a material believed to hold spiritual energy, would have been the ultimate medium for such an object. But here's the catch: no crystal skull has ever been found in a documented archaeological dig. They all surfaced through collectors, their origins shrouded in hearsay. This gap between legend and evidence is what keeps the debate alive. Are they sacred objects smuggled out of history's shadows, or elaborate fakes that fooled even the experts? Perhaps the most fascinating thing about the crystal skulls isn't their origin, but their effect on us. They tap into a primal fascination with the uncanny objects that feel both familiar and alien. They've inspired Indiana Jones plots, New Age rituals, and scientific conferences, straddling the line between artifact and icon. In the end, their power might lie not in what they are, but in what they represent, the human hunger for mystery, for proof that the past holds wonders we can't yet explain. Whether carved by Maya hands or a Victorian con artist, the crystal skulls challenge us to wonder how much history we've gotten wrong and how much magic might still be hiding in plain sight. The Oak Island money pit isn't just a hole in the ground, it's a centuries-old obsession, a riddle wrapped in seawater and speculation. Nestled off the coast of Nova Scotia, this crumbling shaft has lured treasure hunters since the late 1700s, each convinced that beneath its muddy layers lies something extraordinary: pirate gold, Shakespeare's lost manuscripts, even the Holy Grail itself. But here's the catch: no one has ever reached the bottom. Every attempt to excavate the pit ends the same way: tunnels flooding with seawater, wooden platforms collapsing, and machinery failing in ways that feel almost deliberate. It's as if the island itself is fighting back, guarding its secrets with a mix of natural cunning and what some swear is supernatural interference. The story begins in 1795, when a teenager named Daniel Maginnis stumbled upon a peculiar depression in the ground, its edges lined with flagstones and layers of oak logs spaced 10 feet apart, a clear sign of human engineering. As he and his friends dug deeper, they hit more platforms, each one more elaborate than the last, until salt water suddenly burst into the shaft, forcing them to abandon their efforts. That was just the first chapter. Over the next 200 years, expeditions would uncover even stranger clues: a stone slab inscribed with cryptic symbols, layers of coconut fiber, a material foreign to Nova Scotia, and even strands of gold chain glimpsed in the murk before disappearing forever. But with each discovery came disaster: floods, cave-ins, and tragic accidents that claimed lives. The pit became a cursed jigsaw puzzle, its pieces scattered across time and tide. What makes the money pit so maddening is the way it balances plausibility with sheer absurdity. The flooding tunnels suggest an intricate booby trap, possibly built by pirates like Captain Kidd to protect their loot. Yet no pirate in history was known to engineer something this complex. Others propose it's the work of the Knights Templar, who may have hidden sacred relics here while fleeing persecution. There's even a theory that the pit isn't man-made at all, that it's a rare geological formation, its layers of wood and stone just quirks of nature. But then how do you explain the artifacts, or the precise, almost mathematical spacing of those oak platforms? The pit refuses to fit neatly into any category, leaving us to wonder if we're dealing with genius or coincidence. Modern technology has only deepened the mystery. Sonar scans reveal hollow chambers and possible tunnels beneath the island, while core samples detect traces of gold and silver deep underground. Yet every high-tech effort to retrieve these treasures ends in frustration. In 2016, a state-of-the-art drilling operation hit a void at nearly 200 feet, only to have their camera snap a single, blurry image, something metallic and angular, before the shaft collapsed. It's this tantalizing near success that keeps the legend alive. The pit doesn't just hide treasure, it dangles it just out of reach, turning rational people into lifelong believers. Perhaps the real treasure of Oak Island isn't gold or relics, but the story itself, a reminder that some mysteries refuse to be solved. The pit has swallowed fortunes and dreams, yet it still beckons, not because we're certain of what's down there, but because we're not. It's a physical manifestation of human curiosity, a hole that keeps pulling us back in, generation after generation, asking one relentless question: what if? And so the digging continues, not just into the earth, but into the limits of our own obsession with the unknown. The Dropa Stones don't just challenge history, they seem to warp it, spinning a tale so bizarre it feels plucked from science fiction. Discovered in the remote Bayan Karaula Mountains of China in 1938, These circular stone discs, no wider than a dinner plate, are etched with minuscule spiral grooves filled with hieroglyphs so tiny they're almost invisible to the naked eye. But the real shock came when researchers claimed the cave where they were found also held skeletal remains of beings with elongated skulls and frail, child-sized bodies, beings that didn't quite match any known human ancestry. According to translations that have been hotly debated for decades, the stones tell the story of the Dropa, a people who crash-landed on Earth 12,000 years ago, stranded far from home. If true, it would mean our planet hosted extraterrestrial visitors long before recorded civilization began. Mainstream archaeologists dismiss the Dropa stones as an elaborate hoax, pointing to glaring inconsistencies. No credible scientific study has ever examined the skeletons, and the original discs, if they ever existed, have vanished, leaving only disputed photographs and replicas. The man who first publicized the story, a Russian researcher named Tsum Amnui, is shrouded in mystery himself. Some scholars argue he was a fictional creation. Yet the stone's defenders counter with a tantalizing detail. The hieroglyphs, when magnified, reveal a precision and uniformity that would be nearly impossible to forge by hand. The symbols resemble no known ancient script, yet they follow grammatical patterns, suggesting deliberate communication rather than random carvings. Then there's the matter of the cave's location. The Bayan Karaula region is home to the Han, a tribe with oral traditions of small, yellow-faced beings who descended from the clouds in ancient times. Could these legends be distorted memories of the Dropa? Or are they simply myths twisted to fit a modern UFO narrative? The lines blur further when you consider the stone's composition, an unusual blend of cobalt and other metals that, when tested, emitted faint electromagnetic pulses. Skeptics argue this could be natural mineral interference, but believers ask, why would a forger go to such lengths? What makes the Dropa stones so haunting isn't just their potential to rewrite history, it's the way they embody the tension between evidence and myth. They exist in a gray zone where every detail can be read two ways, as proof of an otherworldly encounter or as artifacts of human imagination run wild. Even if they're a hoax, they're a brilliant one, playing on our deepest curiosities about who else might be out there. And if by some slim chance they're genuine, they'd force us to confront an unsettling truth, that we've never been alone and that the stars have been watching far longer than we ever guessed. So where does that leave us? With more questions than answers, as always. The Dropa stones, real or not, have become a cultural touchstone, a reminder that history is full of shadows, and sometimes the most compelling stories are the ones we can't quite prove. They challenge us to wonder how much of our past is still waiting to be uncovered, and how many secrets might still be hidden in the earth, silent and patient, until we're ready to listen. The Holy Lance hums with a paradox. It's both a weapon of suffering and a talisman of power, a relic whose very existence blurs the line between sacred and profane. According to tradition, this was the spear that pierced Christ's side during the crucifixion, an act of mercy that drew blood and water from his body. But unlike other relics tied to quiet veneration, the lance carries a legend far more visceral. Whoever wields it holds destiny itself in their hands. Today, no fewer than 4 European churches claim to possess the authentic spear: Vienna, Rome, Armenia, and Krakow, each with its own chain of custody stretching back centuries. So how did one object fracture into so many shadows, and why does its myth persist with such fervor? Take Vienna's version, the Hofburg lance, enshrined like a crown jewel among the Habsburg regalia. Its history reads like a who's who of conquerors. Charlemagne allegedly carried it into 47 battles undefeated, only to drop it moments before his death. Emperor Constantine the Great reportedly saw a vision of the cross on its blade before his conversion. Even Hitler, obsessed with occult power, seized it in 1938, believing its magic would secure his reign. The lance's allure isn't just about divine connection, it's about control. Kings and tyrants alike have coveted it not as a relic of faith, but as a cheat code for invincibility. And that's the irony. A weapon meant to humble the divine became a trophy for the ruthlessly ambitious. But here's where the story twists. Scientific analysis of the Vienna lance reveals it couldn't have existed in its current form before the 7th century. The blade is fastened with a nail purportedly from the true cross, but metallurgy suggests medieval craftsmanship. Does that make it a fake? Not necessarily. Some scholars argue it's a medieval composite relic, crafted to house fragments of the original spear, a common practice when sacred objects were too fragile to display. The Vatican's version, hidden beneath St. Peter's Basilica, takes this further. It's a simple iron spearhead, unadorned, its authenticity resting on centuries of whispered tradition rather than forensic proof. What's fascinating isn't just the debate over which lance is real, but why the legend endures. The spear's power lies in its duality. For believers, it's a tangible link to the crucifixion, a sacred object charged with grace. For rulers, it's a psychological weapon, a symbol that legitimizes their authority by divine proxy. And for historians, it's a case study in how relics shape empires. The Holy Lance didn't just pass through history, it rewrote it, convincing men they were unstoppable right up until the moment they weren't. Charlemagne's fatal drop of the spear wasn't just bad luck, it was a warning. Perhaps the true magic of the Holy Lance has nothing to do with blades or nails. It's the idea that objects can crystallize belief into action, that a piece of metal can make armies march and kings kneel. Whether any of the surviving spears touched Christ's side is almost beside the point. What matters is that for 2,000 years, people have acted as if they did. And in the end, that's the most powerful relic of all, not the spear itself, but the stories we've wrapped around it, sharp enough to cut history into shapes we're still trying to understand. The copper scroll doesn't just whisper of treasure. It shouts in cryptic, tantalizing detail, listing 64 locations where unimaginable wealth lies buried. Found in 1952 among the other Dead Sea Scrolls, this relic stands apart, not just because it's made of copper instead of fragile parchment, but because it reads like a pirate's map written by an ancient accountant. We're talking about tons of gold and silver enough to bankrupt kingdoms hidden in caves, under walls, and even beneath the Jordan River. Yet for all its specificity, the scroll refuses to give up its secrets. The directions are maddeningly vague. In the ruin that is in the valley of Acca, under the steps leading to the east 40 cubits, a chest of silver and its vessels. No landmarks, no coordinates, just riddles that have sent would-be treasure hunters on wild goose chases for decades. What makes the copper scroll so fascinating isn't just the treasure, it's the mystery of who wrote it and why. The other Dead Sea Scrolls are religious texts, painstakingly copied by scribes to preserve sacred knowledge. But this, it's pure pragmatism, etched into metal as if meant to endure until the treasures were reclaimed. Some scholars believe it documents the Temple of Jerusalem's wealth, hidden ahead of the Roman siege in 70 CE. Others argue it's the stash of Jewish rebels, burying their war chest to fund future uprisings. There's even a theory that the treasure never existed, that the scroll was a symbolic record, or worse, a decoy to send Roman soldiers digging fruitlessly in the desert. Then there's the puzzle of its survival. Copper was valuable in antiquity, yet no one melted this scroll down. Was it considered too sacred to destroy? Or was the metal itself part of the riddle, chosen because it wouldn't decay like parchment, ensuring the directions would outlast generations. Modern technology has only deepened the intrigue. High-resolution scans reveal where patterns suggesting the scroll was rolled and unrolled repeatedly evidence someone consulted it more than once. But here's the twist: despite countless expeditions, not a single cache from the scroll has ever been found. Either the treasures were looted centuries ago, or they're still out there, waiting for someone to crack the code. The real allure of the Copper Scroll lies in its duality. It's both a historical document and a treasure map, a relic that bridges the sacred and the profane. Unlike other scrolls that offer spiritual wisdom, this one speaks the universal language of greed and survival. And that's what keeps us coming back: the idea that somewhere in the dusty hills of Judea, beneath centuries of sand and silence, lies a fortune untouched. It's a reminder that history isn't just about what's been found, but what's still hidden, teasing us with the possibility that the past might yet surrender its secrets. So is the Copper Scroll a divine inventory, a rebel's last laugh, or the ultimate wild goose chase? The answer might be buried deeper than the treasure itself. But one thing's certain: as long as there's a chance, someone will keep digging, chasing the glint of gold through the cracks of ancient text. And in that way, the scroll's true power isn't in the metal it's made of, it's in the hope it keeps alive 2,000 years later. The Georgia Guidestones rise, or rather, rose from the earth like a modern-day Rosetta Stone for the apocalypse. Erected in 1980 in rural Georgia, this 20-foot-tall granite monument bore 10 cryptic commandments etched in 8 languages, from English to Swahili, each one a directive for rebuilding civilization after collapse. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Read the first line, followed by calls for global governance, controlled reproduction, and harmony with the living world. But here's what sent chills down spines: no one knew who commissioned it. The stones arrived under the pseudonym R.C. Christian, a name later tied to a shadowy group of futurists who believed they were safeguarding knowledge for a coming dark age. Then, in 2022, the monument was vandalized and demolished, but not before its message ignited decades of debate. Were these guidelines a blueprint for survival, or the manifesto of a dangerous cult? What makes the Guidestones so unsettling isn't just their content, it's their timing. They appeared at the dawn of the environmental movement, when fears of overpopulation and nuclear war were peaking. The anonymous creators didn't just predict catastrophe, they prepared for it, engraving their vision in stone as if to say, when everything else is gone, this will remain. The monument's alignment with astronomical features, its slots marking solstices and equinoxes, suggested a reverence for cosmic order, but also a cold, almost mechanical logic. Reduce humanity to a sustainable number, replace nations with reason. It felt less like a plea and more like a verdict. Critics called it elitist genocide, a vision that would require unimaginable death to achieve. Conspiracy theorists spun tales of globalist cabals planting their manifesto in plain sight. Yet environmentalists pointed out that the stone's call for balance wasn't so different from modern climate science warnings. The Guidestones thrived in this ambiguity, becoming a Rorschach test for the end times. Visitors left flowers and protest signs at its base in equal measure, while local officials debated whether to treat it as a landmark or a threat. Then there's the mystery of R.C. Christian. The man who commissioned the stones claimed the name was symbolic, hinting at ties to the Rosicrucians, a centuries-old secret society obsessed with esoteric knowledge. He paid for the project in cash, provided exacting specifications, and vanished, leaving behind no paper trail, just a monument that felt both ancient and eerily prescient. Even its destruction didn't silence the debate. When the stones were toppled, some cheered it as a strike against tyranny, while others mourned the loss of a warning we might still need. In the end, the Georgia Guidestones weren't just a relic, they were a mirror. They reflected our deepest fears about the future and our own role in shaping it. Whether you saw them as prophecy or propaganda, their power lay in their permanence until even that was taken away. Now, all that's left are fragments and questions. Who gets to decide what survives when the world falls apart, and what happens when the warning itself becomes a casualty? The Devil's Bible doesn't just sit on a shelf, it looms, its massive vellum pages whispering of a deal struck in the darkest hours of the night. Officially known as the Codex Gigas, this 13th century manuscript is the largest surviving medieval book, so heavy it takes 2 people to lift. But it's not the size that chills the blood, it's what's inside. Amidst beautifully copied Latin Bibles and medical texts sits a full-page portrait of the devil himself, grinning from ear to ear, his claws outstretched as if reaching through the parchment. Legend claims a single monk, desperate to atone for a terrible sin, promised to write the entire book in one night with a little help from below. Whether divine punishment or demonic boast, the Devil's Bible is a paradox, a holy text haunted by the very force it condemns. Look closer and the contradictions multiply. The devil's portrait isn't tucked away in some shadowy corner. It faces a gloriously illuminated page depicting the heavenly city, as if the scribe wanted to force readers to confront both extremes side by side. The rest of the text is eerily uniform, written in a single hand with no signs of fatigue or variation, as if the words flowed onto the page in one superhuman burst. Historians estimate it would have taken decades, not hours, to complete under normal circumstances. So how did it happen? Some argue the deal with the devil's story was a cover for a team of monks working in shifts, their identities erased to protect the monastery's reputation. Others point to the book's bizarre history, how it was seized as war plunder, cursed owners with misfortune, and survived fires that should have destroyed it. Coincidence or something more? Then there's the content itself. Alongside standard religious works, the Codex Gigas includes esoteric texts on exorcism and a calendar marking feast days for obscure saints, plus a few names that don't appear in any other church records. It's as if the scribe blended orthodoxy with secrets meant only for certain eyes. Even the devil's image holds clues. His green skin and twin-tongued grin mirror Slavic folklore, not traditional Christian iconography. Was the artist borrowing from forbidden traditions, or was this a deliberate warning about heresy creeping into the church? The truth might lie in the book's very existence. In an era when most people couldn't read, a manuscript this size wasn't just a book, it was a spectacle, a physical manifestation of power. Monasteries used lavish Bibles to impress patrons and intimidate rivals. So was the Devil's Bible a penitent's plea, a political flex, or a psychological weapon? Maybe all three. Its genius is in its ambiguity, forcing every generation to project their own fears onto it. Today, we see it through a horror movie lens, but 8 centuries ago, that grinning devil might have been less a threat than a reminder. Evil is real, but so is the faith to face it. And so the Codex Gigas endures, not because it gives answers, but because it refuses to. It's a relic of human duality, the need to create and destroy, to worship and fear, to seek salvation while flirting with the abyss. The monk's name is lost to history, but his legacy is a book too heavy to lift, too strange to ignore, and too compelling to ever let go. The London Hammer doesn't just defy expectations, it shatters them, lying quietly in a Texas museum as one of the most baffling anomalies ever unearthed. Discovered in 1936 near the town of London, Texas, This ordinary-looking tool was found embedded in a chunk of rock dated to over 400 million years old, an era when dinosaurs hadn't even evolved, let alone humans capable of forging metal. The hammer's head, made of nearly pure iron with traces of chlorine, shows craftsmanship consistent with 19th century blacksmithing, yet its stone encasement suggests it's been there since long before humans walked the earth. How does something so ordinary become so impossible? Geologists have a straightforward explanation. The hammer isn't as ancient as the rock around it. They argue that minerals can form concretions hard, shell-like layers around modern objects over centuries, creating the illusion of extreme age. But here's where the mystery deepens. The rock surrounding the hammer shows no signs of cracking or disturbance, as if the tool was placed there before the stone solidified. Even more puzzling, the hammer's wooden handle, though partially petrified, retains traces of its original structure, something that shouldn't survive millions of years of fossilization. It's as if time folded around this object, leaving it suspended between epochs. Then there's the hammer's composition. The iron lacks the sulfur and other impurities typical of industrial-era metallurgy, yet it's far too pure to be a natural formation. Some researchers suggest it could be a rare example of cold-forged iron, a technique used by ancient cultures like the Vikings. But if that's the case, how did it end up in Cretaceous-era rock? Theories range from the plausible to the fantastical. Perhaps it was dropped by time travelers, or left behind by an advanced civilization lost to prehistory. Others propose it's evidence of oceanic crustal displacement, a controversial idea that parts of the Earth's surface have shifted catastrophically, burying human artifacts under millennia of geologic layers. What makes the London hammer so captivating isn't just the debate over its origin, it's the way it exposes the limits of our knowledge. Science thrives on consistency, on timelines that neatly stack one era after another. But relics like this hammer whisper of gaps in that narrative, moments where the rules might not apply. Whether it's a geological fluke or something far stranger, it challenges us to question how much we truly understand about the past and how many surprises might still be buried, waiting for the right moment to resurface. In the end, the hammer's power lies in its simplicity. It's not adorned with cryptic symbols or glowing with unearthly energy. It's just a tool, the kind you might find in any workshop. And that's what lingers, the idea that history's greatest mysteries might not be grand or alien, but ordinary objects out of place, quietly rewriting the story of who we are and how long we've been here. The Pirry Rise Map doesn't just chart the known world, it taunts it, stretching across vellum with details no 16th century cartographer should have possessed. Drawn in 1513 by Ottoman admiral and geographer Pirry Rise, this fragment of a larger map shows coastlines with eerie precision, from the western shores of Africa to the eastern edge of South America. But what stops historians cold is the landmass at the bottom, Antarctica, depicted not as the frozen wasteland Europeans would discover in 1820, but as a lush, ice-free continent with rivers and mountains. The problem: Antarctica has been buried under miles of ice for at least 6,000 years. So how did Rise capture its true geography centuries before modern sonar revealed it beneath the glaciers? Some argue the map is evidence of a lost golden age, a time when seafaring civilizations like the Phoenicians or Minoans might have explored the far southern latitudes, preserving their knowledge in libraries later plundered by the Ottomans. Rise himself wrote that he compiled the map from 20 older sources, including charts dating back to Alexander the Great. Could those sources have held traces of ancient Antarctic voyages? Skeptics dismiss this as wishful thinking, pointing out that the map's Antarctica might actually be a distorted version of South America, with its coastline bent to fit the parchment. Yet the contours align suspiciously well with modern subglacial surveys of Antarctica's landmass, right down to the Queen Maud land ridges. Then there's the chilling detail of longitude. 16th century navigators couldn't accurately measure east-west positions, yet Rise's map plots distances with near-modern accuracy. Some theorists propose he had access to advanced celestial navigation techniques, or even aerial surveys, sparking wild speculation about prehistoric aviation or extraterrestrial intervention. But the likelier explanation is bittersweet. Rise was a brilliant synthesizer, weaving together Portuguese, Arab, and possibly even Chinese charts into a composite that, by sheer luck or intuition, captured truths beyond his era's grasp. What lingers isn't just the mystery of how Rise knew, it's the question of how much knowledge has been lost to time. The map survived wars, purges, and centuries of obscurity only to resurface in 1929, a relic that refuses to fit neatly into history's timeline. Whether it's proof of ancient explorers or a cartographic fluke, it forces us to wonder, if one map could defy explanation, how many others might have burned, crumbled, or sunk beneath the waves, taking their secrets with them? The Pirry Rise Map isn't just a navigational tool, it's a ghost whispering of worlds we thought we knew, and the ones we're still missing. The Saxehuamán Walls don't just defy gravity, they defy logic. They're massive limestone blocks stacked like a jigsaw puzzle carved by giants. Towering above Cusco, Peru, this fortress complex showcases stones weighing up to 300 tons, each one cut with such precision that even today, you can't slip a piece of paper between them. No mortar, no gaps, just seamless joints that have withstood earthquakes for over 6 centuries. How did the Inca, a civilization without iron tools or the wheel, achieve such perfection? The answer might lie in a blend of ingenuity, patience, and techniques we're still struggling to replicate. Start with the basics. These aren't just stacked stones. The blocks interlock in 3 dimensions, their edges beveled and their surfaces slightly convex, creating a bond so tight it's as if they grew together. Modern engineers have tried to explain it with simple tools, wooden wedges, water, and abrasives, but even those methods can't account for the sheer scale and precision. Some researchers point to the Inca's mastery of ashlar masonry, where stones were painstakingly shaped by trial and error, each block tapped into place with wooden mallets until the fit was flawless. Others suggest they used templates or plaster molds to transfer measurements, a technique that would require mathematical sophistication far ahead of its time. Then there are the wilder theories. Local legends speak of a mysterious plant extract that could soften stone, allowing workers to mold it like clay before it hardened again. Scientists dismiss this as fantasy, but intriguingly, certain plants in the region do contain acids that can etch rock surfaces. Could the Inca have discovered a natural stone solvent? Even more fantastical is the idea of sound levitation, that the blocks were moved and positioned using acoustic vibrations, a concept echoed in myths from Tibet to Egypt. While there's no hard evidence, the notion lingers because, frankly, we still can't fully explain how they transported these megaliths from quarries miles away without wheels or draft animals. What makes Sacsayhuamán truly remarkable isn't just the how, though it's the why. This wasn't just a fortress, it was a symbol of Inca dominance, a physical manifestation of their connection to the earth and the cosmos. The zigzagging walls mirror the toothed lightning bolts of their thunder god, Illapa, while the layout aligns with solstice sunrises. Every perfectly placed stone was a statement that humans could harness the chaos of nature and reshape it into order. And it worked. When Spanish conquistadors arrived, they were so awed by the walls they assumed demons must have built them. Today, the stones whisper a humbler truth. They remind us that ancient civilizations didn't need aliens or magic to achieve the extraordinary, just knowledge passed down through generations, lost to time but preserved in rock. Sacsayhuamán stands as a testament to what humans can accomplish when they observe, adapt, and refuse to accept limits. The real mystery isn't whether the Inca had help, it's why we're so quick to assume they couldn't have done it themselves. The Rongorongo Script doesn't just hide its meaning, it guards the soul of Easter Island, carved into wooden tablets with symbols that dance between art and language. Discovered in the 19th century, these intricate glyphs, figures of birds, plants, and geometric shapes form the only known indigenous writing system in the Pacific, a startling anomaly on an island thousands of miles from the nearest continent. But here's what baffles scholars. Rongorongo appears fully formed, with no evidence of simpler precursors. Did the islanders invent writing in complete isolation? Or did some forgotten visitor plant the seed of this script before vanishing into the waves? The tablets themselves are as enigmatic as the symbols they bear. Made of Toromiro wood, a tree native to the island, they've survived against the odds in a climate that devours organic material. Some show signs of being hastily carved, as if the scribes were racing against time, perhaps during the island's collapse in the 18th century, when deforestation and civil war nearly erased its culture. The glyphs flow in a unique reverse boustrophedon pattern. Instead of zigzagging left to right like ancient Greek texts, the lines flip upside down at each turn, forcing the reader to physically rotate the tablet. Was this a sacred cipher or simply the whim of a lone carver? No one knows, because Rongorongo's last fluent readers died before outsiders could record their knowledge. What makes this script so haunting is its isolation. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, is one of the most remote inhabited places on Earth, with no evidence of contact with literate cultures before European arrival. Yet Rongorongo shares eerie similarities with other undeciphered scripts. Some glyphs resemble motifs from the Indus Valley seals, while others echo the knotted chords of Inca quippers. Coincidence or proof of connections we've yet to uncover? The most tantalizing clue lies in oral history. Islanders claimed the tablets were spoken wood, suggesting they were meant to be recited aloud, but without a Rosetta Stone to match symbols to sounds, the words remain frozen in silence. Efforts to crack Rongorongo have followed every lead, from statistical analysis to artificial intelligence, but the script resists like few others. Unlike the Voynich Manuscript, whose symbols at least follow linguistic patterns, Rongorongo's glyphs blur the line between writing and iconography. Are they logograms, syllables, or a mix of both? Even the island's famous Moai statues offer no help. They stand mute, their backs turned to the sea, as if keeping the secret. Perhaps the greatest tragedy isn't that we can't read Rongorongo. It's that we might never grasp what was lost when the last carver laid down his chisel. These tablets could hold myths, histories, or warnings about the island's ecological collapse. Or they might be something simpler: receipts, prayers, love letters. Without the key, they're ghosts of a civilization that mastered the ocean, only to leave its deepest thoughts just out of reach. And so the wood whispers, waiting for the day someone might finally understand. The Maine Penny sits in a quiet corner of the Maine State Museum, small enough to fit on a fingertip yet weighty with implications. This silver coin, minted in Norway between 1065 and 1080 CE, shouldn't exist in the Americas, not for another 4 centuries at least. Discovered in 1957 at the Nazca Point archaeological site, a former Native American settlement, It's the only confirmed Norse artifact found in the United States outside of Newfoundland's Elance Aux Meadows. But how did this medieval Scandinavian currency end up over 1,000 miles south, buried among the tools and hearths of the Wabanaki people? The answer could rewrite the story of transatlantic contact, or reveal a far more intriguing tale of trade networks stretching across continents. At first glance, the penny seems like a smoking gun, proof that Viking explorers ventured far deeper into North America than we've ever dared to believe. After all, the sagas speak of Leif Erikson's voyages to Vinland, a land of wild grapes presumably in modern-day Newfoundland. But Maine, that's a brutal coastal journey south through treacherous waters, with no other physical evidence to support such an expedition. Skeptics argue the coin likely arrived through indigenous trade routes, passed hand to hand over generations until it reached Nazca Point. The Wabanaki were part of a vast exchange network spanning the continent, where shells from the Gulf of Mexico and copper from the Great Lakes changed hands. A Norse coin, rare and exotic, would have been a prized curiosity, perhaps even a sacred object, its origins blurred into myth. Yet the coin's context raises questions. It wasn't found alone but alongside thousands of native artifacts, suggesting it wasn't a modern contaminant or a hoax. Even more puzzling, the penny shows little wear, as if it didn't circulate long before being lost or buried. Could it have been part of a Norse trader's pocket change, dropped during a fleeting visit? Or was it deliberately placed, a token of some forgotten encounter between cultures? The timing adds another layer. The coin dates to the height of Norse exploration, when Greenland's settlers were actively harvesting timber from North America's coasts. If even one ship strayed farther south, the Maine Penny might be the lone whisper of that journey. What makes this relic so captivating isn't just the what if of Viking voyages. It's the reminder that history is messier than our textbooks allow. Objects move in ways we can't always trace, carried by currents of commerce, curiosity, or chance. The Maine Penny could be proof of a fleeting Norse foothold, or it could tell a quieter, equally profound story of indigenous peoples connecting continents long before Europeans claimed to discover them. Either way, this tiny silver disc holds a power far beyond its size, bridging worlds with a silence that speaks volumes. The Denderah Light flickers at the edges of history, a stone-carved enigma etched into the walls of an Egyptian temple dedicated to the goddess Hathor. At first glance, it looks shockingly out of place, a bulbous shape cradled by what appears to be a socket, with a sinuous filament snaking through its center, an uncanny echo of a modern light bulb carved over 2,000 years ago. How could a civilization that left no written records of electrical knowledge depict something so eerily precise? The answer depends on who you ask. Mainstream Egyptologists dismiss it as a symbolic representation of a lotus flower cradling a snake, part of a larger cosmological scene about creation myths. But to those who study fringe theories, it's a smoking gun, a proof that the ancients might have harnessed electricity long before Edison. What makes the Denderah carving so compelling is the specificity of its details. The filament isn't just a random squiggle, it mirrors the precise curves of a glowing tungsten wire, while the socket resembles a ceramic insulator. Even more intriguing, the temple's underground crypts show traces of soot unusual for a space supposedly illuminated by torches, which would have left far more residue. Could the Egyptians have used some form of arc lighting, or even crude batteries like the Baghdad artifact, to create steady, clean illumination? The idea isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. Experiments with replicas of the so-called Denderah lamps, powered by lemon juice or vinegar as electrolytes, have produced faint but measurable light. Yet the debate isn't just about technology, it's about how we interpret symbolism versus literalism. Ancient Egyptian art was steeped in metaphor. The snake in the carving could represent the sun god Ra's nightly journey through the underworld, while the bulb might symbolize the womb of the sky goddess Nut. To assume it's a literal light bulb risks projecting modern biases onto a culture that thought in entirely different terms. But here's the twist. Even if the carving is purely symbolic, it still reveals a sophisticated understanding of light as a transformative force. The temple's priests weren't just artists, they were scientists of the sacred, mapping cosmic principles onto stone. The real mystery of the Denderah Light isn't whether it worked like a flashlight, it's why this particular image resonates so deeply with our modern imagination. Maybe it's the thrill of thinking we've uncovered a lost chapter of human ingenuity. Or maybe it's the humbling possibility that ancient people saw the world in ways we're still struggling to grasp. Whether it's a lotus or a light bulb, the carving endures as a challenge to keep questioning, to keep wondering how much of the past is still waiting to be illuminated. The Ubaid Lizard Men stare out from the depths of prehistory with almond-shaped eyes and elongated heads, their slender bodies frozen in postures that are both eerily human and unmistakably other. Unearthed in modern-day Iraq, these 7,000-year-old statues depict figures with distinctly reptilian features, slit-like eyes, scaled textures, and even what appear to be tails. They're artifacts of the Ubaid culture, a civilization that thrived millennia before the rise of Sumer, yet their existence feels like a glitch in the timeline. Were these creatures merely symbolic representations of gods, or do they hint at something far stranger lurking in humanity's forgotten past? Look closely at their forms, and the questions multiply. Some statues cradle infants with the same reptilian traits, suggesting these weren't just masks or costumes but an entire lineage. Others hold staffs or pose in ritualistic stances, implying a role of authority or worship. Archaeologists lean toward interpreting them as deities, perhaps water gods linked to the primordial serpent myths found in cultures worldwide. After all, the Ubaid people lived near the marshy Tigris-Euphrates delta, where snakes and lizards were both revered and feared. But here's the twist. Unlike typical animal-headed gods of later Mesopotamian cultures, the Ubaid figures aren't hybrids. They're fully realized beings, their anatomy too consistent to dismiss as artistic license. This precision has fueled wilder theories. Could the statues be evidence of an ancient cult that practiced genetic manipulation, splicing human and reptile DNA in ways we've yet to comprehend? The idea isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. The Ubaid period saw the dawn of agriculture and settled life, a time of radical experimentation. Or consider the extraterrestrial angle. Tales of serpent-like beings appear in creation, myths from the Aboriginal Dreamtime to the Sumerian stories of the Anunnaki. What if these statues are physical echoes of encounters with beings not of this earth? Yet the most unsettling possibility is that we're simply misreading the past. Without written records from the Ubaid era, their art is a language without a key. Those scales might be intricate tattoos or ritual scarring. The elongated skulls could reflect actual head binding practices, a tradition seen in ancient cultures from Egypt to Peru. But even this pragmatic explanation raises its own mysteries. Why would an entire civilization idealize such extreme body modification? And why reptiles of all things? What makes the Ubaid Lizard Men so haunting isn't just their alien appearance, it's the way they force us to confront how little we understand about early human imagination. Were they metaphors for transformation, symbols of a people caught between the wild and the civilized, or are they relics of a truth we've long since buried? The statues refuse to tell us, standing silent in museum cases, their secrets as impenetrable as the millennia that separate us from the hands that shaped them. In the end, they're a mirror, Whether gods, aliens, or metaphors, the Ubaid Lizard Men reflect our own obsession with the boundaries of humanity, and the fear that those boundaries might be far more fluid than we've ever dared to admit. The stone spheres of Costa Rica sit silently in the jungle like marbles dropped by some ancient giant, their smooth, perfect curves defying the chaos of nature around them. Ranging from a few inches to over 8 feet in diameter, with some weighing as much as 2 cars, these orbs are so precisely spherical that modern engineers struggle to explain how a pre-Columbian culture carved them without metal tools or advanced mathematics. Discovered in the 1930s when workers cleared land for banana plantations, the spheres quickly became one of archaeology's most tantalizing puzzles, not just for their craftsmanship, but for their eerie uniformity. How did a society without written records or wheels achieve such geometric perfection, and why? Look closer and the mystery deepens. The stones, made of granodiorite, a hard volcanic rock, show no visible chisel marks, suggesting their creators used a combination of heating, cooling, and meticulous pecking with stone tools to shape them over generations. Some researchers believe the spheres were rolled on log frames to their final locations, though how they transported the heaviest ones remains anyone's guess. Then there's their arrangement. Many were found in clusters, sometimes aligned in straight lines or arcs, while others sat alone, as if placed with intentional purpose. One leading theory suggests they functioned as astronomical markers, their positions mapping solstices or celestial events. Others argue they were symbols of power, the ancient equivalent of a king's crown, displayed by chiefs to assert dominance. But the most provocative idea, that they're relics of a lost civilization with knowledge we've yet to rediscover, or even artifacts left by visitors from beyond our world. What makes these spheres so mesmerizing isn't just their unknown function, it's what they reveal about human ingenuity. The Dikwis people who crafted them between 300 and 1500 CE left no blueprints, no written explanations, just the stones themselves, polished to a mirror-like finish. Were they sacred objects imbued with spiritual meaning, practical tools for navigation or land surveying, or something we haven't even considered? The truth might lie in the sphere's very imperfection. Recent laser scans revealed tiny deviations in their shape, imperceptible to the eye but proof that their makers prioritized visual harmony over mathematical exactness. This wasn't cold precision, it was artistry, a testament to how humans have always sought to impose order on the wild. Yet the stones refuse to surrender their secrets. Looters and erosion have scattered many from their original sites, erasing clues about their arrangement. Local legends speak of them being gifts from the gods or containing hidden gold, leading to vandalism that's irreparably damaged some. Today, UNESCO protects the remaining spheres, but they still whisper the same question. How much of the past have we misunderstood? They stand as silent witnesses to a culture that mastered geometry without rulers, that moved mountains without machines, and that left behind a legacy as enigmatic as it is beautiful. In the end, the stone spheres of Costa Rica aren't just relics, they're a mirror. They reflect our own obsession with perfection, our hunger to decode the past, and our humility in the face of mysteries that outlast the hands that made them. Whether celestial maps or tribal treasures, their greatest power lies in the way they remind us that some questions don't need answers to endure. The Ghent-Alta Pieces Just Judges panel isn't just a missing painting, it's a ghost haunting the art world, a void that echoes louder than any masterpiece still hanging on display. When thieves pried it from its frame in 1934, they didn't just steal a fragment of Jan van Eyck's 15th century magnum opus. They ignited a mystery that's outlived generations of detectives, forgers, and conspiracy theorists. The panel, depicting a solemn procession of biblical figures, vanished without a trace, leaving behind a trail of cryptic ransom notes, dead-end clues, and a question that still burns. Was this a crime of greed, an act of obsession, or something far darker? Consider the audacity of the theft itself. The altarpiece housed in St. Bavo Cathedral in Belgium was one of the most revered artworks in Europe, a symbol of faith and Flemish pride. Yet the thieves targeted just one panel, slicing it from the polyptych with surgical precision. The first ransom demand arrived wrapped in layers of intrigue, the thief signing as D. UA claimed to act out of patriotic duty, demanding 100,000 francs for the panel's return. But here's where the plot thickens. The negotiator, a local bishop, received a second note with a bizarre twist, a tiny key taped to the paper, said to unlock a locker in Brussels containing further instructions. The locker held nothing but another dead end, and soon after, the trail went cold. Was this a meticulously planned heist, or the work of a lone fanatic playing a twisted game? For decades, the panel's fate has been a canvas for wild speculation. Some believe it was destroyed, accidentally burned by the thief's widow, who allegedly confessed on her deathbed to using it as firewood. Others insist it survives, hidden in a collector's vault or buried beneath a Belgian aristocrat's estate. The most tantalizing theory, that Nazi art looters seized it during World War II, only to lose it in the chaos of their collapsing regime. After all, Hitler's agents were known to hunt Van Eyck's works, considering them Aryan cultural treasures. Yet despite raids on salt mines and castles stuffed with stolen art, the just judges never surfaced. What makes this relic's absence so haunting isn't just the loss, it's the way the void invites obsession. Over the years, amateur sleuths have scoured archives, deciphered coded messages, and even accused high-profile figures of involvement. One man, Arsène Godetier, a stockbroker with ties to the cathedral, became the prime suspect after his dying words hinted at knowledge of the panel's location. But his cryptic clues led only to a hollow wall and more questions. Even the replica that now fills the gap feels like a taunt, a placeholder for a truth that refuses to be uncovered. Perhaps the panel's greatest power lies in what it represents, the fragility of cultural memory. Art isn't just pigment and varnish, it's a vessel for stories, a bridge between centuries. The just judge's disappearance isn't merely a crime, it's a rupture in that connection, a reminder of how easily the past can slip through our fingers. And so the search endures, not just for a painting, but for the piece of ourselves that vanished with it. Every lead, no matter how faint, keeps alive the hope that somewhere, beneath layers of time and deceit, those solemn faces still wait to be found. The Baltic Sea Anomaly doesn't just sit on the ocean floor, it hums with mystery, a 60-meter-wide enigma that looks like it crashed straight out of a sci-fi film. Discovered in 2011 by a team of Swedish treasure hunters, this bizarre structure appeared on sonar as a perfect circle with angular protrusions, its silhouette uncannily mirroring the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. But the strangeness doesn't end with its shape. Divers who have ventured near it report eerie malfunctions, cameras failing, compasses spinning wildly, and equipment suddenly cutting out as if the anomaly itself is pushing back against scrutiny. Is it a glacial deposit twisted into an impossible form by nature's whims, a sunken relic of Nazi engineering, or something far older and far stranger? Start with the geology. Skeptics argue the anomaly is likely a glacial erratic, a boulder dragged and shaped by Ice Age movements thousands of years ago. The Baltic Sea's floor is littered with such formations, and the region's unique salinity can create metallic-looking crusts on rocks, which might explain the object's oddly smooth surfaces. Yet even they admit the structures near symmetrical ridges and 90-degree angles are unusually precise for natural processes. Then there's the runway, a 300-meter-long trail leading to the object, as if it skidded to a halt. If this is just a rock, why does it look like it was parked there? Now layer in the history. The Baltic was a battleground during World War II, and Nazi Germany tested advanced submarines and stealth technology in these waters. Could the anomaly be a lost prototype like the rumored Die Glock, the Bell, a device said to warp spacetime? Divers have retrieved samples with metals not native to the region, including iron oxide and limonite, but nothing conclusively man-made. Still, the timing is suspicious. If it is a Nazi experiment, its abandonment in the war's chaotic final days would explain the lack of records, but the wildest theories orbit the idea of extraterrestrial origins. The anomaly's electromagnetic effects real or exaggerated mirror UFO lore, where crafts allegedly disrupt technology with unseen energy fields. Some researchers point to its location near the Gulf of Bothnia, a hotspot for historical UFO sightings, as circumstantial evidence. Even NASA has weighed in, albeit cautiously, noting the structure's unusual composition, without endorsing any specific explanation. What makes the Baltic Sea Anomaly so compelling isn't just the debate over its identity, it's the way it exposes our hunger for the unexplained. In an age where satellites map every inch of the planet, here's something that defies easy categorization, lurking in the dark just beyond our reach. Whether glacial quirk, wartime secret, or cosmic visitor, it challenges us to admit how little we truly know about the depths beneath us and the stories they might still be hiding. The Plain of Jaws sprawls across the highlands of Laos like a puzzle left behind by giants, thousands of ancient stone vessels, some as tall as a person and weighing several tons, scattered across the landscape in clusters that defy easy explanation. Carved from sandstone and granite over 2,000 years ago, these massive jaws bear no inscriptions, no carvings, just their silent, gaping mouths turned toward the sky. Were they funeral urns holding the ashes of the dead, storage containers for rice or wine meant to sustain the living, or perhaps altars for rituals lost to time? The answer might lie in the very earth beneath them. Human remains, ceramics, and iron tools have been found buried nearby, but the jaws themselves guard their secrets like stoic sentinels. What makes this site so haunting isn't just the jaws themselves, but the context of their survival. Nestled in a region scarred by the Vietnam War's secret bombings, the Plain of Jaws is littered with unexploded ordnance, making archaeological work perilous. Yet even amid this danger, researchers have uncovered tantalizing clues. Some jaws sit in deliberate alignment with mountain peaks, suggesting celestial or spiritual significance. Others contain glass beads and bronze ornaments, hinting at trade networks stretching far beyond Laos. Then there's the sheer variety. Some vessels are rough-hewn, others polished to a smooth finish, as if crafted by different hands for different purposes. This isn't a monolith, it's a mosaic of a culture we're only beginning to glimpse. Theories about the jar's purpose are as varied as their shapes. Local legends speak of a race of giants who brewed rice wine in them to celebrate a great victory. Forensic archaeologists point to the presence of skeletal fragments and burial goods, supporting the idea of funerary use. But here's the twist: not all jars show signs of human remains. Could they have served multiple functions, containing offerings for the dead in one era, storing grain or rainwater in another? The lack of written records forces us to read between the lines, or in this case, the cracks in the stone. Perhaps the most compelling detail is what's missing. Unlike Egypt's pyramids or Stonehenge, the Plain of Jaws lacks the grandeur of a centralized power. There's no evidence of kings or armies, just communities investing immense labor into these vessels without leaving so much as a name. That anonymity is its own kind of revelation. This wasn't a monument to ego, but to collective belief, a testament to a people who measured their legacy not in conquests, but in the weight of stone and the patience of generations. Today, the jaws stand as both a mystery and a mirror. They challenge our obsession with linear history, reminding us that some cultures leave behind questions instead of answers. And in that silence, they speak volumes about the universality of ritual, the ingenuity of ancient hands, and the quiet persistence of memory in a landscape that's endured far more than time. The Sanxingdui Masks stare back at us through millennia with hollow eyes and grotesquely elongated features, faces that shouldn't exist, yet somehow do. Unearthed in the Sichuan province of China in the 1980s, these bronze visages belong to a civilization so thoroughly erased from history that not even ancient Chinese texts mention them. With their flared nostrils, protruding pupils, and ears stretched to impossible proportions, they look less like human portraits and more like visions from a fever dream. But here's the twist: these weren't the products of some isolated, primitive culture. The Sanxingdui people were masters of metallurgy, crafting bronze with techniques so advanced they rivaled, and in some cases surpassed, their contemporaries in the Shang dynasty. So how does an entire society with such breathtaking artistry vanish without leaving a trace? The masks themselves are just the beginning. Among the ruins of Sanxingdui, archaeologists found a treasure trove of relics that defy categorization. A towering bronze tree studded with birds and dragons, golden scepters inlaid with jade, and life-sized statues with angular, almost alien proportions. None of it fits the aesthetic of neighboring cultures. Unlike the Shang, who favored symmetry and realism, the Sanxingdui artists embraced distortion, as if they were channeling the spirit world rather than mimicking the physical one. Take the most famous mask with its windshield wiper eyes stretching nearly a foot outward. Some scholars believe these represent the mythical King Kong, described in later folklore as having eyes that project. Others argue they're depictions of deities, their exaggerated features meant to convey supernatural vision or hearing. But without written records, we're left with a gallery of riddles, each artifact whispering a question we can't quite hear. Then there's the mystery of their disappearance. Around 1200 BCE, at the height of their sophistication, the Sanxingdui culture abruptly collapsed. The evidence is chilling: pits filled with shattered bronzes, all carefully buried in what appears to be a ritualistic act of destruction. Was this self-inflicted, a mass renunciation of their gods? Or did invaders force them to dismantle their own civilization? Geological clues suggest another possibility. Soil samples reveal signs of catastrophic flooding and earthquakes around the same time. Could nature have erased what history forgot? The most haunting theory is that the Sanxingdui didn't vanish at all, that they migrated and merged with other cultures, their art influencing later traditions in ways we've yet to untangle. What makes these masks so unforgettable isn't just their strangeness, it's the way they force us to confront the fragility of human memory. Here was a people who cast their dreams in bronze, only to have their very existence wiped from the record. Their legacy survives in fragments, daring us to imagine what else might be buried beneath our feet, waiting for the right shovels to uncover it. The Sanxingdui masks aren't just relics, they're mirrors, reflecting how much we still don't know about the tangled web of the ancient world, and how many more surprises might still be out there, silent beneath the soil. The Tully Papyrus teeters between history and myth, a fragile scroll said to document something extraordinary in the skies over ancient Egypt. According to translations, this text from Pharaoh Thutmose Roman III reign around 1400 BC describes circles of fire hovering above the Nile, brighter than the sun and silent as shadows. These objects reportedly moved unpredictably before vanishing into the heavens, leaving the pharaoh and his priests to record the event on papyrus as a divine omen. But here's the catch: no original copy of the papyrus exists. The version we know comes from a disputed Italian translation in the 1930s, based on a transcript allegedly copied from a now-lost artifact. So is this proof of ancient astronauts or an elaborate hoax playing on our fascination with the unknown? Dive into the details and the story grows murkier. The language of the translation itself raises eyebrows. Phrases like "their breath was foul" and "they had no heads" feel more like medieval folklore than typical Egyptian records, which tended toward meticulous, unembellished accounts of celestial events. Yet tantalizing parallels exist. The reign of Thutmose Roman III did produce detailed astronomical logs, and other cultures, from the Vedic texts of India to the biblical Ezekiel, describe similar fiery chariots or flying shields. Could the Tully Papyrus be a distorted record of a meteor shower or atmospheric phenomenon? Or does it hint at something more deliberate, a visitation preserved not just in one scroll, but echoed across civilizations? Skeptics point to the papyrus's elusive paper trail. The original owner, Alberto Tully, was an antique dealer who claimed to have seen the document in Cairo but couldn't afford to purchase it. Instead, he supposedly transcribed it, only for both the original and his notes to vanish. Without physical evidence, the text lives in a limbo of second-hand accounts, making authentication impossible. But here's the twist: even if the Tully Papyrus is a fabrication, its persistence in UFO lore reveals something profound about how we reinterpret the past. Ancient skies were filled with wonders, comets, auroras, eclipses that defied explanation. When we project modern UFO narratives onto these events, we're not just chasing aliens, we're grappling with the same awe that gripped Thutmose's scribes millennia ago. What gives the Tully Papyrus its enduring power isn't its provenance, but the questions it forces us to ask. How much of history's strangeness have we rationalized away? And if one disputed scroll can spark debates for nearly a century, what might we be missing in the thousands of texts still untranslated or undiscovered? Whether artifact or artful fiction, the papyrus serves as a reminder. The past was never as simple as we imagine. Its mysteries, real or invented, keep us looking up, just as those ancient Egyptians did, wondering what else might be watching back. The Roman dodecahedrons sit in museum cases like tiny bronze puzzles, their 12 pentagonal faces staring back at us with silent defiance. These palm-sized objects, scattered across former Roman territories from Britain to Hungary, share an uncanny uniformity, each one hollow, with circular holes of varying sizes cut into every face and small knobs at each corner. Yet despite hundreds of these artifacts surfacing over centuries, not a single shred of writing or illustration from the Roman era mentions them. How could something so meticulously crafted, so widely distributed, leave behind no explanation of its purpose? It's as if the Romans conspired to leave us a riddle wrapped in geometric precision. Consider the theories that have piled up like layers of ancient dust. Some scholars argue they were measuring devices, perhaps for calibrating water pipes or calculating distances, given the mathematical harmony of their proportions. Others suggest they were candlestick holders with wax dripping through the holes to form intricate patterns. Then there's the knitting hypothesis that Romans threaded yarn through the holes to create gloves, though no surviving textiles or tools support this. The most tantalizing idea ties them to astrology or religious rituals. The dodecahedron's 12 faces mirror the 12 months or zodiac signs, and their occasional discovery near temples hints at a sacred role. Imagine a priest using the object to divine the heavens, aligning its holes with celestial events as bronze caught the flicker of torchlight. Yet every theory crumbles under scrutiny. If they were tools, why nowhere marks from use? If they were toys, why the costly bronze and flawless symmetry? Their very perfection is the puzzle. Roman society was nothing if not practical. They didn't waste resources on decorative enigmas. This suggests the dodecahedron's function was once so obvious, so commonplace, that no one thought to document it. Or perhaps their purpose was deliberately obscure, known only to initiates of a cult or guild that vanished without passing down its secrets. What makes these objects so mesmerizing isn't just their mystery, it's what they reveal about the gaps in our knowledge. We can reconstruct Roman aqueducts and decode their laws, but the dodecahedrons remind us that history is full of quiet, ordinary things that slip through the cracks of time. They might have been as mundane as a kitchen gadget or as profound as a philosopher's talisman. Without context, they become mirrors, reflecting our own assumptions about the past. And so the dodecahedrons endure not as answers but as invitations. They challenge us to keep questioning, to imagine the hands that held them and the minds that conceived them. In a world where we've mapped the human genome and probed distant galaxies, these little bronze shapes whisper a humbling truth. Some mysteries outlast empires, waiting patiently for the day we might finally understand. The fairy flag of Dunvegan isn't just a relic, it's a whisper of magic woven into fraying silk, a banner so steeped in legend that even its tattered threads seem to hum with otherworldly power. Housed in Scotland's Dunvegan Castle, this delicate square of fabric, no larger than a baby's blanket, is said to have saved the MacLeod clan from certain doom not once but 3 times. Unfurled on the battlefield when all hope was lost, it supposedly summoned fog to cloak retreating warriors, turned the tide of impossible odds, and even brought lost kinsmen home from the brink of death. But here's the twist. Scientific testing confirms the flag dates back to the 4th century, long before the MacLeods dominated the Isle of Skye. So how did a fragment of ancient silk become the stuff of fairy tales? The answer lies in the collision of history and myth. One legend claims the flag was a gift from the fairy folk to a MacLeod chieftain who married a fairy princess. As she returned to her realm, she left the banner as a token of protection with a warning. It could only be used 3 times. Another tale describes a wounded chief receiving it from a mysterious woman who vanished into the mist, her cloak fluttering behind her like wings. But beneath these fantastical layers, there's a kernel of plausibility. The silk itself is Middle Eastern in origin, likely transported along ancient trade routes. Could it have been a crusader's spoil, a diplomatic gift, or even loot from a Viking raid? The fabric's journey to Scotland is its own unsolved riddle. What makes the flag so mesmerizing isn't just its alleged powers, it's the way generations of MacLeods have treated it as both sacred heirloom and battle talisman. Clan records describe its final use in the 16th century when it was unfurled to summon a storm that scattered an invading fleet. After that, it was carefully folded away, its last miracle spent. Yet even now, visitors to Dunvegan Castle report a strange energy around the display case, as if the flag's magic lingers in the quiet between breaths. Science, of course, offers colder explanations. The supernatural aid could have been coincidental weather shifts, or the psychological boost of believing in divine intervention. But try telling that to the MacLeods, who have passed down the flag's stories for centuries. To them, it's not just cloth, it's a covenant, a reminder that history and myth aren't always separate. Sometimes they're threads in the same tapestry, woven so tightly you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. And so the ferry flag endures, frayed but unbroken, its true origins lost between the ferry hills and the blood-soaked fields of Skye. Whether divine gift or dynastic heirloom, it challenges us to wonder how many relics like this exist, bridging the gap between what we can prove and what we dare to believe. The flag doesn't just hang in a castle, it hangs in the balance, a fragile testament to the power of stories to outlast even time itself. The Tarim mummies lie in the heart of China's Taklamakan Desert like time travelers stranded far from home, their flaxen hair, high cheekbones, and woven wool garments unmistakably Caucasian, yet buried in the sands of Xinjiang over 4,000 years ago. These aren't just well-preserved bodies, they're genetic anomalies that upend our understanding of ancient migration. How did people with European features end up so deep in Asia, millennia before the Silk Road connected these worlds? The answer isn't just a footnote in history, it's a rewrite of how cultures collided long before recorded time. Take the most famous of these mummies, the so-called Beauty of Lulan. Her auburn hair still braided, her eyelashes delicate as if she might blink awake at any moment. Buried in a boat-shaped coffin with ephedra twigs, a plant linked to early Indo-European rituals, she and others like her suggest a culture that blended East and West in ways we never imagined. DNA analysis confirms their origins trace to the Black Sea region, yet their artifacts, felted wool, horsetail ornaments mirror those of nomadic steppe tribes. They weren't lost travelers, they were pioneers, part of a Bronze Age diaspora that stretched farther than we ever thought possible. What makes these mummies so revolutionary isn't just their European roots, it's the way they force us to redraw the map of ancient human movement. Conventional wisdom held that East and West developed in relative isolation until later trade routes emerged. But the Tarim Basin was a melting pot centuries earlier, a crossroads where herders from the Eurasian steppe mingled with early Chinese farmers. Some researchers believe these migrants brought with them technologies like wheeled carts and metallurgy, seeding innovations that would later flourish across Asia. Others argue they were refugees fleeing climate shifts that turned their grasslands to dust. Either way, their presence whispers of a connectivity that predates empires. Then there's the mystery of their disappearance. By the time the Han dynasty rose, these Caucasian features had vanished from the region, absorbed into the local population or displaced by new waves of migration. Did they assimilate or were they wiped out by conflict or disease? The mummies offer no easy answers, only silent testimony to a chapter of history erased by time. Their very existence challenges the narratives of racial and cultural purity that have shaped modern identities, proving that borders, geographic or genetic, were always more fluid than we've been taught. The real power of the Tarim mummies lies in their duality. They're both relics and rebels, preserving the past while upending our assumptions about it. In their weathered faces, we see not just strangers in a strange land, but evidence of a world far more interconnected and far more mysterious than we ever dreamed. And that's the thrill of archaeology. Sometimes the most profound discoveries aren't gold or grand monuments, but the quiet, crumbling remains of people who dared to wander beyond the edges of the known world. The hand of glory grips the imagination like few other relics, a withered, severed limb transformed into a tool of thieves and sorcerers, steeped in equal parts horror and dark practicality. According to European folklore, particularly in Britain and France, this gruesome talisman was crafted from the hand of a hanged criminal, dried and preserved with occult rituals. When fitted with a candle made from the fat of the same corpse, its flame was said to render victims motionless, allowing burglars to loot homes undetected. But beneath the grisly legend lies a deeper question. Was this merely the stuff of campfire tales, or did it emerge from real, shadowy practices hidden in history's margins? The process of creating a hand of glory reads like a witch's grimoire brought to life. Instructions from old manuscripts detail how the hand had to be severed at midnight, wrapped in a burial shroud, and pickled in a jar of salt and herbs for weeks. The final step, inserting a candle between the fingers, was believed to activate its power, casting a light only the wielder could see. Some accounts even claimed the flame could unlock doors or silence barking dogs, making it the ultimate thief's companion. But here's the chilling detail. Records from the 18th and 19th centuries describe actual arrests where burglars were caught with dried hands in their possession. Was this proof of widespread belief, or simply desperate criminals hedging their bets with superstition? Dive into the historical context, and the hand of glory begins to make a twisted kind of sense. In an era before forensic science, crime was as much about psychological warfare as brute force. The mere rumor of such a relic could terrify villages into compliance, leaving doors unlocked out of fear. And the choice of a hanged man's hand wasn't arbitrary. It tapped into ancient beliefs about the power of liminal beings, those who died violently and were trapped between worlds. Their remains were thought to hold residual magic, a concept echoed in everything from Celtic head cults to Slavic folklore about necromancy. The Hand of Glory, then, wasn't just a tool. It was theater, a performance of terror designed to exploit deep-seated fears. Yet the line between myth and reality blurs when you examine surviving specimens. Museums across Europe, including the Whitby Museum in England, display purported hands of glory, their shriveled fingers curled as if frozen in mid-incantation. Forensic analysis reveals some are genuine human remains, while others are clever fakes made from animal limbs. This duality raises another possibility, that the hand became a self-fulfilling prophecy. As the legend spread, criminals may have adopted the symbol, using it as a badge of intimidation regardless of its magical efficacy. After all, if your victim believed in the curse, the hand didn't need real power. Their fear did the work for you. What lingers isn't just the grotesque imagery, but what the Hand of Glory reveals about humanity's relationship with the macabre. It's a relic born at the intersection of desperation and ingenuity, where folklore and crime colluded to create something both absurd and deadly serious. Whether functional or fantastical, its legacy endures as a reminder of how easily belief can be weaponized, and how the darkest corners of history often hold the strangest reflections of ourselves. And so the Hand of Glory remains, not just as a museum curiosity, but as a cipher. It challenges us to ask, where does superstition end and strategy begin? In the flicker of that candle's flame, we see not just the ghost of a hanged man, but the shadowy ingenuity of those who knew that sometimes the best magic is the kind your victims believe in. The Phaistos disc sits in its museum case like a silent symphony of symbols, its clay surface stamped with 45 distinct signs spiraling inward like a hypnotic whirlpool of ancient intent. Unearthed in 1908 from the Minoan Palace of Phaistos on the island of Crete, this 15-centimeter disc dates back to the 2nd millennium BCE, a contemporary of the pyramids, yet infinitely more enigmatic. Unlike the Rosetta Stone with its parallel translations or the cuneiform tablets of Mesopotamia, the Phaistos disc offers no key, no bilingual inscription to unlock its meaning. Just 241 symbols pressed into the clay with individual seals before firing, as if someone took great care to make sure this message would last, but never imagined no one could read it. What makes this relic so tantalizing isn't just the mystery of its text, it's the isolation of its existence. The symbols on the disc appear nowhere else in Minoan archaeology, not on pottery, not on walls, not even in fragments. It's as if this language, if it is a language, was used once and then vanished. Some researchers argue the symbols resemble those found in Linear A, the still undeciphered script of the Minoans, but even that connection is tenuous at best. The disk stands alone, a linguistic island in a sea of silence. Theories about its purpose span the spectrum from the sacred to the mundane. Could it be a hymn to a forgotten goddess, its spiral mimicking the labyrinth of Knossos? The repetition of certain symbols, like the plumed head and the tattooed face, suggests ritualistic or poetic repetition. Others propose it's a practical document, a tax ledger, a legal decree, or even an early board game with the spiral as a playing path. Then there's the calendar hypothesis. The 45 unique signs might correspond to lunar or agricultural cycles, a farmer's almanac pressed into clay. But without context, each interpretation feels like grasping at smoke. Even the disk's physicality raises questions. The precision of the stamped symbols implies the use of movable type, a concept historians believed didn't emerge until millennia later with Gutenberg. Why would this technology appear in Bronze Age Crete, only to disappear without a trace? Some speculate it was a diplomatic gift from a distant culture, a lone survivor of a lost writing system. Others wonder if it's a hoax, though the wear patterns and chemical composition of the clay confirm its antiquity. Perhaps the most haunting possibility is that the Phaistos disk wasn't meant to be understood by everyone. Its symbols could be a cipher, a secret language known only to priests or rulers. Or maybe it's something far simpler, a personal artifact, a love letter or a diary, never intended for outsiders. Whatever the truth, the disk endures as a testament to the fragility of human communication. Across 3,500 years, its symbols have kept their silence, reminding us that the past doesn't always whisper its secrets. Sometimes it stares back, mute and unyielding, daring us to listen harder. The emerald tablet doesn't gleam with jewels or gold. It hums with something far more potent, words that have twisted through history like a living spell. Attributed to the mythical Hermes Trismegistus, a figure straddling the divine and the human, this ancient text is barely a paragraph long, yet its cryptic verses have fueled alchemists, scientists, and mystics for over a millennium. As above, so below, it declares, a phrase so deceptively simple it's been called the Rosetta Stone of the occult. But what does it mean? Is it a recipe for turning lead into gold, a metaphor for cosmic harmony, or a key to unlocking the human soul? The answer depends on who's holding the magnifying glass. Consider its influence. Medieval alchemists like Isaac Newton copied the tablet's text by hand, scouring its lines for clues to the philosopher's stone. Renaissance scholars saw it as a bridge between Egyptian wisdom and Christian mysticism, while modern esotericists interpret it as a proto-scientific manifesto, an early glimpse of quantum entanglement or the holographic universe. The tablet's power lies in its ambiguity. Unlike other relics, its value isn't in the physical object, the original, if it ever existed, vanished centuries ago, but in the way its words refract through time, bending to fit the obsessions of every era. Then there's the puzzle of its origins, purportedly discovered in a cave by Alexander the Great, or hidden beneath the lips of Hermes' corpse, depending on which legend you follow. The tablet's earliest known version appears in an Arabic text from the 8th century. Yet its ideas echo much older traditions: Gnostic cosmology, Neoplatonic philosophy, even hints of ancient Babylonian astrology. This isn't just a text, it's a palimpsest of human thought, layers of meaning scraped and rewritten until the original is indistinguishable from the interpretation. What makes the Emerald Tablet so mesmerizing isn't just its mystery, it's the way it resists categorization. To call it alchemy feels reductive when its words have inspired everything from medieval medicine to Jungian psychology. That famous phrase, "as above, so below," isn't just about mirroring the macrocosm and microcosm. It's an invitation to see connections where none seem obvious. When alchemists heated metals in their furnaces, they weren't just chasing gold, they were enacting a spiritual drama with the tablet as their script. And perhaps that's the real secret. The Emerald Tablet endures not because it holds answers, but because it refuses to settle into a single meaning. It's a relic of the mind, a mirror that reflects whatever the seeker brings to it. Whether philosophy, science, or magic, its power lies in the act of questioning itself, a reminder that the greatest mysteries aren't meant to be solved, only pondered again and again, until the next generation picks up the thread. The lost crown jewels of Ireland don't just represent stolen treasure, they're a gaping hole in history, a heist so audacious it reshaped an entire nation's sense of security. On the 6th of July 1907, Dublin Castle's heavily fortified Bedford Tower was breached with eerie precision. The jewels, a diamond-studded star and badge belonging to the Order of St. Patrick, weren't just ceremonial. They were symbols of British rule over Ireland, making their disappearance as politically charged as it was mysterious. The safe's lock showed no signs of tampering, yet the gems vanished into thin air, leaving behind a trail of whispers, scandals, and a question that still burns. How does a kingdom's most guarded treasure simply disappear? What makes this theft so tantalizing isn't just the jewel's value, estimated today at over $20 million, but the cast of characters entangled in the drama. Suspicion fell immediately on Sir Arthur Vickers, the Ulster King of Arms, who'd reportedly shown off the keys to the safe at a party days before the theft. Then there's Francis Shackleton, brother to the famed explorer Ernest, a man with shadowy connections and mounting debts. Even the Dublin police weren't above reproach. Their bungled investigation included lost evidence and a sudden halt to proceedings that reeked of a cover-up. Was this an inside job orchestrated by disgruntled officials, or a daring strike by Irish nationalists aiming to humiliate the crown? The truth might lie somewhere between theft and theater. Rumors about the jewels' fate spiral as wildly as the heist itself. Some claim they were smuggled to Amsterdam and dismantled, their stones sold anonymously on the diamond market. Others insist they were buried in the Irish countryside, waiting for a politically opportune moment to resurface, a theory fueled by cryptic letters sent to newspapers in the 1930s, signed by someone claiming to be the thief. The most chilling possibility, that they never left Dublin Castle at all. In 2018, an Irish historian proposed they'd been hidden in a secret compartment beneath the tower's floorboards, overlooked for over a century. Yet the real legacy of the lost crown jewels isn't just their absence, it's what their theft reveals about power and perception. The heist exposed the fragility of colonial authority, proving even the most sacred symbols could be plucked away under the crown's nose. For Ireland, the jewels became a metaphor, stolen treasures mirroring stolen autonomy. Today, their story lingers in the space between crime and rebellion, a relic that refuses to be forgotten, not because of the gems themselves, but because of the audacity it took to make them vanish. Whether melted down or gathering dust in some attic, they remain the ultimate ghost of heist history, taunting us with the thrill of the unsolved. The Margate shell grotto feels like stepping into the dream of a mad poet, an underground labyrinth where every inch of wall and ceiling shimmers with mosaics of 4-6 million seashells, painstakingly arranged into swirling sunburst geometric patterns. And cryptic symbols, discovered in 1835 by accident when a local boy dug into the earth. This hidden chamber stretches nearly 70 feet beneath the streets of Margate, England. yet its origins are as opaque as the chalky Kentish soil that concealed it for centuries. Who would devote years, perhaps generations, to crafting such a place, burying their artistry where no natural light could ever reach? Walk through its narrow passages today, and the sheer scale of the work overwhelms. The shells, mussels, whelks, oysters aren't just haphazardly glued. They're curated by color and size, forming intricate designs that shift from floral motifs to what some believe are astrological or pagan symbols. The centerpiece, an altar-like chamber dubbed the dome, radiates with a sun pattern, its rays stretching outward like a celestial map. Yet for all its beauty, the grotto offers no inscriptions, no artifacts, no clues beyond the shells themselves. Carbon dating places its construction somewhere between 3,000 years ago and the 18th century, a range so broad it's practically useless. This isn't just a mystery, it's a riddle wrapped in layers of sand and silence. Theories about its purpose spiral as wildly as the designs on its walls. Some argue it was a smuggler's den, the shells a distracting facade for illicit trade. Others see it as a sacred space, perhaps a temple for a forgotten cult that worshipped the sea or the moon, their rituals lost to time. The most whimsical suggestion ties it to the Knights Templar, who may have used it as a secret meeting place, though there's no evidence they ever set foot in Margate. Then there's the mundane explanation that it was simply a wealthy eccentric's folly, an underground garden room meant to dazzle dinner guests. But why hide it so completely? And why shells, a material so fragile yet chosen to outlast the hands that placed them? What makes the shell grotto so haunting isn't just the unanswered questions, it's the intimacy of its craftsmanship. This wasn't a project commissioned by a king or a church. It feels personal, almost devotional. The shells, many gathered locally, would have required countless hours of collection, sorting, and placement, each one pressed into wet lime mortar by fingers that left no other trace. Was it a communal effort, a shared act of faith or defiance, or the life's work of a single visionary, their name erased by time? The grotto's power lies in its resistance to categorization. It's too elaborate to be meaningless, yet too obscure to decode. Unlike Stonehenge or the pyramids, it doesn't announce its importance, it whispers, drawing you deeper into its coiled passages until you're left with nothing but wonder. In a world obsessed with answers, the Shell Grotto is a rare refuge for mystery, a place where the past refuses to explain itself. And perhaps that's the point. Some stories aren't meant to be solved, only felt, like the brush of a shell's edge against your palm, smooth and sharp all at once. The devil's footprints materialized in the dead of winter, a trail of hoof-like impressions burned into the snow as if scorched by something far hotter than flesh. On the night of February 8, 1855, residents of Devon, England, woke to find these eerie marks stretching for over 100 miles, cutting across fields, scaling rooftops, even appearing on opposite sides of walls without disturbing the snow between them. Each print measured roughly 4 inches long, shaped like a cloven hoof, but arranged in a perfect single file, as if whatever made them moved with unnatural precision. By dawn, the entire county was buzzing with panic. Had Satan himself taken a midnight stroll through the English countryside? Theories erupted faster than the footprints could fade. Local clergy declared them a divine warning, while farmers blamed everything from escaped kangaroos to wandering badgers with frostbitten paws. Scientists of the era proposed more measured explanations, that the marks were caused by a weather balloon, a concept still in its infancy, or even airborne chains dragged by the wind. Yet none of these could account for the prints' bizarre path, how they vanished abruptly at riverbanks only to reappear on the opposite shore. or how they seem to defy physics by crossing rooftops without disturbing the snow below. Even the spacing between the prints remained unnervingly consistent, as if whatever created them moved at a steady, unhurried pace despite the impossible terrain. Then there's the folklore angle. For centuries, Devon had whispered tales of ghostly black dogs and spectral steeds, omens of death in Celtic and Norse mythology. Could mass hysteria have transformed these legends into physical marks? Psychological studies of the era were crude, but modern analysis suggests collective fear can warp perception, especially in an age before photography, when word of mouth ruled. Yet the sheer scale of the phenomenon, witnessed by hundreds across multiple towns, makes simple hallucination unlikely. Even skeptical newspapers like the Times of London documented the footprints in bewildered detail, their reporters tracing the path firsthand. The most chilling possibility, that the footprints were neither hoax nor hallucination, but evidence of something we still can't categorize. 1855 was a time of rapid scientific upheaval, when concepts like electromagnetism and atmospheric pressure were barely understood. Could some rare natural phenomenon, a plasma discharge, a localized magnetic anomaly, have seared those marks into the snow? Or does the truth lie in the realm of the unexplained, a fleeting glimpse of something that defies our frameworks entirely? What lingers isn't just the mystery of the marks themselves, but their eerie impermanence. Unlike relics locked behind glass, the devil's footprints left nothing to analyze: no casts, no photographs, just fading impressions in melting snow. They exist now as a collision of fear, folklore, and the limits of human understanding. Whether prank, anomaly, or omen, they remind us that some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, only witnessed, debated, and carried into the next century, still whispering from the edges of history. The WOW signal sliced through the silence of space like a knife in the night, a burst of radio waves so intense it made astronomer Jerry Amon scrawl, "Wow," in red ink on the printout. On August 15, 1977, Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope locked onto a signal from the constellation Sagittarius, a narrowband frequency matching the predicted signature of an interstellar transmission. For 72 electrifying seconds, it blared 30 times louder than the cosmic background noise, then vanished as suddenly as it appeared. 4 decades later, it remains the most compelling and frustrating anomaly in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Was this our first brush with an alien civilization, or just the universe playing a cosmic prank? What makes the WOW signal so maddening isn't just its brevity, it's the specificity. The frequency, 1420 MHz, sits in a protected, quiet zone where earthly transmissions are banned to avoid interference. Natural cosmic phenomena like pulsars or quasars don't emit such focused radio waves, and the signal's intensity followed a curve matching a celestial source moving with the rotation of the Earth. Even the signal's structure, coded as 6=J on Amon's printout, defies easy explanation. It's as if someone out there pressed a cosmic send button, then thought better of it. Scientists have thrown every tool at the mystery. Recent studies suggest a passing comet or its hydrogen cloud could have mimicked the signal, but the timing doesn't align. No known comets were in Sagittarius that night. Others propose a rogue satellite or military transmission, yet declassified records show no matching operations. The most haunting possibility, that the signal was deliberate, a fleeting hello from a civilization that either lost interest or couldn't sustain contact. Imagine the irony. After centuries of scanning the stars, we might have caught a whisper from another world and missed our chance to reply. The WOW signal endures as a relic of cosmic ambiguity, a reminder that the universe dangles answers just beyond our reach. It's not just a scientific puzzle, it's a mirror reflecting our own loneliness and curiosity. Whether alien or anomaly, those 72 seconds proved one thing: the cosmos is louder, stranger, and far more mysterious than we ever imagined. And somewhere in the static, another signal might already be on its way, if we're patient enough to listen. The bloop erupts from the depths of the ocean like a scream from the abyss, a sound so powerful it circled the globe multiple times before scientists even detected it. In the summer of 1997, hydrophones designed to monitor Soviet submarines picked up something far stranger. An ultra-low-frequency pulse lasting just over a minute, louder than a blue whale's call and radiating from a remote stretch of the Pacific near South America. The noise defied classification, its waveform unlike anything in recorded history. Dubbed the bloop by baffled researchers, this sonic anomaly wasn't just mysterious, it was alive. The way the sound rose and fell suggested a biological origin, something massive and mobile. But what creature could produce a noise that dwarfs the mightiest known animals on Earth? For years, theories ricocheted between the plausible and the fantastical. Marine biologists first pointed to giant squid or colossal octopuses, creatures of legend that might lurk in uncharted trenches. Yet even the largest invertebrates lack the vocal anatomy to generate such a roar. Others proposed icebergs, calving, or glacial icequakes, but the bloop's tonal qualities didn't match the sharp cracks of fracturing ice. Then there's the location. The sound emanated from near the coordinates HP. Lovecraft gave for the sunken city of Arlaye in his fictional Cthulhu mythos, a coincidence that sent conspiracy theorists into overdrive. Could this be the waking call of something ancient and unfathomable, stirring in the dark? The truth, as it often does, proved both simpler and stranger. By 2012, NOAA scientists concluded the bloop likely resulted from massive icequakes. After all, specifically, the fracturing of Antarctic ice shelves during particularly violent breakup events. These iceberg bursts can release energy equivalent to small earthquakes, generating frequencies that ripple through the ocean like a struck gong. Yet even this explanation leaves gaps. Why hasn't a similar sound been recorded since? And why did the bloop's signature resemble organic vocalizations more than mechanical ruptures? The ocean, it seems, reserves the right to keep a few secrets. What lingers isn't just the mystery of the sound itself, but what it represents. The bloop is a sonic relic of our planet's last uncharted frontier, a reminder that the ocean's depths hold phenomena we can't yet categorize. In an age where satellites map every inch of land, the seafloor remains less explored than the surface of Mars. Every unexplained echo, every shadow on a submersible's camera, whispers the same humbling truth: we've barely begun to listen. The bloop may have faded into silence, but its legacy endures, a ghost in the hydrophones urging us to keep diving deeper. From ancient computers humming with celestial secrets to maps that charted lands beyond time's horizon, these 37 relics aren't just artifacts, they're invitations. Each one dares us to question the stories we've been told, to peel back the layers of history and ask, what if we've only scratched the surface? The Antikythera Mechanism's gears still turn in our imaginations. The Voynich Manuscript's unreadable pages flutter with possibility, and the bloop's echo lingers like a whisper from the deep. These aren't just puzzles to solve, they're reminders that the past is alive, shifting under the weight of new discoveries, daring us to keep looking. What ties them together isn't just their mystery, but the way they expose the limits of our understanding. For every relic we've decoded, like the Rosetta Stone cracking open ancient Egypt, there's a Dropa Stone or a Phaistos disc holding their tongues across centuries. They teach us humility. The more we learn, the more we realize how much has been lost, Libraries burned, languages forgotten, entire civilizations swallowed by jungle or sand. Yet these fragments endure not as dead ends but as doorways. The Georgia Guidestones' shattered pieces and the Oak Island money pit's flooded tunnels aren't failures. They're proof that the hunt itself matters as much as the treasure. And that's the real magic. These relics don't just belong to archaeologists or historians. They belong to anyone who's ever stared at the stars and wondered. Maybe you've stood beneath the Nazca Lines, feeling the weight of their invisible design, or traced the smooth curves of Costa Rica's stone spheres, marveling at hands that shaped them millennia ago. That connection between then and now, between the people who made these objects and the people who still chase their secrets, is where the true story lies. It's not just about what these artifacts are, but what they do to us. Spark debates in dorm rooms, fuel late-night internet rabbit holes, and remind us that curiosity is the most human thing of all. So what's next? With every technological leap, AI deciphering scripts, LiDAR revealing buried cities, we're rewriting history in real time. The next great relic might be sitting in a museum basement, mislabeled, or waiting under some farmer's field, or drifting in the ocean's midnight zone. And that's the thrill. The past isn't finished. It's a conversation, and you're part of it. Tell us in the comments which mystery keeps you up at night. The Shroud's ghostly face, the hand of glory's chilling lore. Hit subscribe because this journey's far from over. The earth still holds its breath, guarding secrets we've yet to dream of. And who knows, the next great discovery might have your name on